So this morning I want to talk about my second sharing economy bill. Sharing Economy 2 is the current name for it. Basically, Sharing Economy 2 is going to build on the groundbreaking legislation called Opportunity in the Sharing Economy, which you'll recall has passed second reading in the legislature with PC and a lot of Liberal support. It focused on ride sharing and home sharing and parking sharing. And I'm really happy that we've advanced those issues considerably. And I remain optimistic that if not my bill, something like it will become commonplace across Ontario. The advantage of doing that was folks like Cato came to see me and they said, Tim, if you're interested in these particular sharing economy issues, why don't you look at some more? So that's what Sharing Economy 2 is all about. And the themes that are close to my heart, welcoming innovation and empowering people. For a lot of people across Ontario, it's pretty tough to make ends meet. A lot of Ontarians are living paycheck to paycheck. I also believe in my heart that a lot of Ontarians are actually micro-entrepreneurs. There's an entrepreneur in many of us. And the sharing economy gives them the chance to bring out their inner entrepreneur, to make some needed money, to be their own boss, to use the assets they already own or the skills that they've honed to make a little money and get more enjoyment in life. Look, if there's any way to give people back probably the two most precious commodities, time and money, I'm all for that. And that's what Sharing Economy 2 is going to do. I'll tell you a quick story. One of the areas I'm going to have in my bill is around cottage food laws. So what are cottage food laws? Basically empowers people to make a little extra cash from home cooking, whether it's baked goods, spreads, candies, a lot of things that you see at farmers markets today. Here's a quick story. There's a woman named Paula Bergen who lives in my riding in West Lincoln and helped me form this idea. So Paula makes about $1,500 to $2,000 a year because she's really good at baking cookies and cakes. So selling to the local Boy Scouts, the local schools. So she wanted to actually go through the right doors, do the honest thing, register her business, follow all the rules. And guess what she found out? They forced her to build a second kitchen in the basement of her house. You couldn't do any other cooking there except for these particular businesses. She had to put in a fire door and all kinds of bells and whistles that cost $6,000 in material and God knows how much more on the labor side. Paula is actually pushing ahead. God bless her for doing that. Her husband says, yeah, it's going to cost us a lot of money, but you're good at it. So let's keep at it. And all she wanted to do was raise $1,500 a year to take the girls on vacation. Shouldn't we actually be welcoming that and encouraging more of it? 48 out of 50 states have cottage food laws. We should have one in Ontario as well. The bill also includes carpooling. While governments encourage it, or governments lecture us about it, it's been a miserable failure since the 1970s. New technology and apps like Blanc Ride, a Canadian, actually Ontario-based app, can help people ride to work more easily together. The third area is tasking or task services. Like TaskRabbit is the big one across North America. We have our own Canadian versions. But basically that can be anywhere from hiring a plumber to fix the sink to more everyday tasks like grabbing a few goods from the grocery store or standing in line waiting for tickets. People who have time on their hands that want to sell their skills, their services, their time, and others who want to benefit from them. And here's Cato next. Financial technology, fintech. Look, we have an incredible opportunity to turn Toronto into the San Francisco when it comes to financial technology. I mean, we are world leaders when it comes to financial services. We also have great innovative companies and CEOs like Cato. But we have old, outdated rules standing in the way. So you know how San Francisco became the home to Uber, to Airbnb, to Square? So too Toronto and Ontario can become home to the next wave of financial technology companies in the sharing economy. So Cato is the CEO of Lending Loop, basically a service that wants to link people who want to lend money with small businesses who want to borrow. All of you have heard from small businesses it's awfully difficult to get money out of banks these days, especially for small loans. Cato wants to fix that. So I'll have Cato say a few more words about Lending Loop and the obstacles he's encountered.
Perfect. Thank you, Tim. I'd love to give you a brief overview of what peer-to-peer lending is and why it matters. So to begin with, peer-to-peer lending is really the practice of lending money to individuals or businesses through online services that match lenders directly with borrowers. Peer-to-peer lending companies operate entirely online, which means that they can cut out the cost of traditional financial institutions by minimizing overhead. As a result, lenders typically earn higher returns compared with savings and investment products that are available to them, while borrowers can borrow money at lower interest rates. So the unfortunate state of affairs today is that Canada is almost 12 years behind our international competitors when it comes to this new and innovative sector. Dan Bresnitz is the co-director of the Innovation Policy Lab at the Munk School of Global Affairs, and he noted that when it comes to financial innovation and peer-to-peer lending, Canada is almost 11 years late to the party. And specifically in a report, he quoted, "What's traditionally been seen as a source of a competitive advantage for the financial service sector, our regulatory system, is now seen by many to be in the context of an obstacle in the context of our evolving fintech ecosystem. We believe it's possible to turn around our regulatory environment into an effective growth asset if the financial sector in Toronto can brand Toronto as a fintech center that's safe and reliable, as well as flexible and innovative." It's important to understand why peer-to-peer lending actually matters for investors and for our economy as a whole. Small and medium-sized businesses are the backbone of the Canadian economy. They employ 90% of Canadians working in the private sector and produce almost 30% of the country's GDP. Over the last few years, traditional financial institutions have made their lending requirements far more rigid, particularly for these smaller loan amounts, which means that small and medium-sized businesses and consumers have had a much harder time getting access to financing. Typically after that, their only option is to source funds that cost well in excess of 20 or 30%. Access to affordable financing is imperative to have small and medium-sized businesses generating growth in our Canadian economy. Peer-to-peer lending and the product and service that we're talking about today can give businesses access to the capital they need in order to fuel innovation, create jobs, and compete on the global stage. For investors, peer-to-peer lending provides everyday Canadians access to a very attractive asset class that was typically only reserved for institutions. Technological innovation has led to lower minimum investments, making peer-to-peer lending a democratic lending opportunity that's accessible to anyone. As with many other businesses taking advantage of our new sharing economy, peer-to-peer lending allows investors to lend their idle capital and put it to work in ways that were previously impossible. Investors on peer-to-peer lending platforms not only get the benefit of a highly attractive investment product to deploy this unutilized capital, but they also get to support their communities and the economy as a whole while investing. In many other economies across the globe, from New Zealand to China, the US to the UK, peer-to-peer lending's had phenomenal success. If we take a look specifically at the UK, the government's been supporting the blossoming sector ever since its inception, through rapid regulatory innovation and monetary support. In fact, in 2012, the UK government themselves invested £20 million into British businesses via peer-to-peer lenders, with the intention of injecting capital that would end up directly in the hands of small business owners. A second investment of £40 million was announced in 2014, and ongoing support for these platforms has been provided monetarily and legislatively, with the most recent examples being tax-free shelters for P2P investors and mandatory referral programs for borrowers from banks. As recently as this week, regulators in the US have committed to make further enhancements to the manner in which they regulate the financial technology ecosystem. In fact, this week, one of the top US banking regulators issued formal calls for officials to start crafting new framework aimed at governing the rapidly growing financial technology sector in order to foster more rapid innovation going forwards. If we want to make sure that Canada is not left behind, we need to be at least at a par with these innovations in regulation. So, to conclude, what can we do? In an era where technology is outpacing the speed of regulation, as we see in so many different industries, it's critical that lawmakers, regulators, entrepreneurs, and industry incumbents foster an open dialogue that doesn't hamper or halt the success of new business models. We need to move quickly to ensure that regulations allow peer-to-peer lending markets to form, and recognize that peer-to-peer lending is a viable source of capital for small businesses and a fantastic investment opportunity for both retail and institutional investors.
Perfect.
Today, we're tremendously excited to see Ontario lawmakers start to push our financial industry forward. The company I co-founded, Lending Loop, has faced adversity from decade-old regulations that's hampered our ability to grow and serve Canadians. We're very excited to see things that will acknowledge and address the specific needs and requirements of the peer-to-peer lending model that's seen so much success across the globe.
Awesome, Cato. Thanks very much. And to Cato's point, so it's happening in the States, happening in the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand are moving in the right direction, so why not Canada? You know what? I think in the interest of time, you've got the link to the website. You can walk through it. We won't go through the website. But basically, it outlines the previous bill, what's in Sharing Economy 2, and then solicits input. So next stage, make sure I do my homework. I've got all the details of the bill right, and hopefully it'll get passed in the Assembly.